Hello and welcome to the Healthy Orange Movie Reviews. I'm Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and today I'm continuing my series on my favorite films of the past decade with a talk about Two Lovers, a romantic drama from 2009. But before I get into that, I want to begin with a question, which is, what do you want from a movie? Well, I have no idea, but I can tell you what I want, and I suspect it's what many people desire as well. I want to see things that excite and entertain me. Beautiful images, interesting performances, exciting vistas, all of that good, wonderful cinematic fodder. But at the same time, I want something to think about, something that's frankly going to trouble me and give me something to talk about, wonder about, be frustrated by. And Two Lovers is a perfect movie in the sense that it gives you that, while being a visually poetic and emotionally rich film. It's a complete, intelligent work of entertainment, albeit certainly a dark one. And it is quite dark. It has a very troubled hero, Leonard, played by Joaquin. He's a young man who's mentally ill and living with his parents in Brooklyn. He's just attempted suicide and been dumped by his fiancée, and so he's back in the old family apartment in his old bedroom and living with his parents, and it is for him a nightmare. He has nowhere else to go, but he's not happy sort of living as an adult child, essentially. He wants to be free. And it's something embodied by the fact that he works at his father's dry cleaning store. So at work he's with his father, at home he's with his father and his mother. So he's constantly with his parents. He isn't really able to define himself as an individual. And so you get this wonderful scene where he's on a train talking to his friend Michelle, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, and telling her that he works for his father, and she says, "Oh, that's great, you'll never get fired." And here's what he says, and I love this line. He says, "Yeah, but there's no risk in it. Sometimes I just feel dead." There's an expletive in there that I can't say on this video, sorry. But I think it's a brilliant line, and it's one of the first times in the movie where Leonard is truly honest. And despite being a likable character, he's an incredibly dishonest character. He's enough to make you wonder if he's a pathological liar, although the movie never comes out and says that. The movie doesn't diagnose Leonard in that way, but he lies very casually throughout the film. When one day he spends a huge portion of the day with Michelle and is late to meet his father. He gets home, his dad, played by the great Moni Moshinov, is shouting, "Where were you? We were worried." And Leonard says, "Oh, I was stopped because there was a terrorist alert in the subway." It's like, what? And it's such a ridiculous lie, and he delivers it so with so much confidence. Like, of course it's true. It's just it's funny. It's so dark. It's funny. Not the idea of a terrorist alert, which of course is not funny at all, but the fact that Leonard is using it as this excuse, and he's always making these weird, strange excuses. He lies very easily, very confidently. But then you get there's an ironic layer to this. Leonard, as the movie goes on, he starts dating this woman, Sandra, who is the daughter of one of his father's business partner. So there's another family connection for you. And there's a great scene where they're at a restaurant, this sort of grayish, barren restaurant, where Sandra knows there's something wrong with Leonard, but she really does love him. She doesn't care. And she says to him, I feel like I understand you. I want to take care of you. And then she says to him, you're different. You don't pretend to be something you're not. Which is so deliciously ironic, because he's such a liar. And yet, he in terms of his personality, he really doesn't hide who he is. He's kind of a bizarre, demented, unhinged guy, and he doesn't try to hide that. He doesn't try to pretend to be normal. He's out there doing crazy stuff, doing strange voices and magic tricks to impress people, and dancing around at the dry cleaning store where he and his father work. He's a bizarre guy, and he doesn't try to hide his strangeness. He doesn't try to blend in. You know, he walks around town in this, horribly slobby raincoat, yet he doesn't think to try and appear normal by changing his clothes sometime or wearing a nicer looking coat. He really is who he is. But that's not making him happy. There's a very, very troubling drama building up within him. From the moment he meets Sandra when she comes over to his parents' apartment for dinner, it's clear there's something between them, and it's obvious that Leonard likes her, especially when, after meeting her, I think he throws a photograph of his former fiancée in the garbage. So you get the sense that, he's hungry for a relationship. He wants to be with someone, so he's gonna throw himself into it. And he does call up Sandra. He does make overtures towards trying to form a romantic relationship with her. But then he meets Michelle. And as I stated before, she's played by Gwyneth Paltrow, and like all the performances in the film, it's a truly, truly fantastic performance. Ms. Paltrow is really, really good at playing hyper intelligent characters, whether it's Emma in the Jane Austen adaptation of the book of the same name, or in Iron Man, where she's Pepper Potts and she's Tony Stark's conscience. She's the one running his company. Even though Tony Stark's the genius, she's the one with the brains. But in Two Lovers, she goes in a completely different direction. And I love all her performances. I think Two Lovers is probably, maybe, it might be a toss-up with Emma, but I think Two Lovers might be her best performance. So in Two Lovers, she's playing a really, really very, very stupid character. Michelle is a complete airhead, and which is well personified in the scene where she's talking to Leonard and she's like, "Put your name in my phone and we can text." And it's like, why did you just say text? You're not a teenager. I'm still quite young, and I don't say text. I mean, come on. But that's what makes the character so brilliant and so fascinating. Her kind of unintelligence, and how that develops throughout the film. But the real heart of the matter is that Leonard is in love with her. And it's a very, very interesting thing. Sandra and Michelle are both equally good looking, so there's no way that Leonard is just going for the prettier woman. And in fact, Sandra is much nicer and much more honest. And yet there's something about Michelle that is that draws Leonard in. You know, I don't even know what it is myself, but there's there's a scene where they go out dancing, and for the first time Leonard looks really, really happy, and the lights are flashing, people are everywhere, and as they're dancing he embraces her, and it looks like he looks like a drowning man clinging on for dear life, and he really wants to be with her in his gut. And I know myself from my own experiences that you don't always love what's good for you. You sometimes love people even if you know they're bad for you. It's just it's the quirk of human nature, the beauty and the danger of it, in my opinion. And there is a lot of danger in Two Lovers because Michelle happens to be in love with a married man who's an incredibly moronic figure in the film. And yet Leonard pursues her. Leonard wants to be with her, and even after he wises up and shuts her out of his life, he comes running back when she asks for his help, and is very, very eager to help her. And I think part of that is because Leonard is helpless. He's a man still in the care of his parents, and he wants to be an adult. And there's a scene where he jokingly says to Michelle, like, kind of trying to be like, you know, mock tough. He's like, "I'm here to protect you," and even though he means it as a joke, he really does want to be a protector, to be a knight in shining armor. He wants, I believe, to be with someone who needs him, and Sandra doesn't need him. She's a very stable person, whereas Michelle is really messed up, possibly a drug addict, and constantly making terrible choices and asking for advice. So that, I think, is very inviting to someone like Leonard. And so, as I often do, I am going to now go into spoilers. So by all means, shut the video off. But if you want to hear about the ending, please continue. So, what happens ultimately is that even as he's dating Sandra, Leonard instinctively goes for Michelle, and after that they have this phone conversation. They live in the same apartment building. They're looking across the courtyard out their windows at each other, and Leonard says, first Michelle tells him that she's moving. She's going to leave. She's going to move from New York to San Francisco, and Leonard says, "I'll come with you. I have no reason to stay here." And so we get this brilliant sequence of events in which he prepares to depart with her. And Two Lovers is such a realistic movie. It's very beautiful. There are all these wonderfully shadowy and poetic images, starting with the beginning where Leonard is just a silhouette on a bridge. But it's very real. There's no voiceover. The camera work and the editing aren't showy, so there's a very palpable feeling to the movie. And the realism, I think, is reminiscent of Lost in Translation, my favorite film of all time, for those who don't know. But that movie is, filled with, gleaming skyscrapers and pop music and gorgeous color, and so you're thinking as you watch it, as you're meant to, you're thinking a bit about the craft and the aura and the directing. Whereas Two Lovers, you certainly notice the directing by the wonderful James Gray, But there's no pop music. There's no bright colors. It's all there's just a lot of gray and black, very rich, shadowy images, and so it's simpler. You're more you're focused less on the craft and more on the characters, and so the suspense of Leonard getting ready to leave with Michelle, and is the plan going to work? Is he going to escape, essentially? Because of the simplicity of the technique, that becomes really, really, really powerful. And it all builds up to this moment where he's waiting for her, and well, you don't know that it's her. He's down in the courtyard in the apartment, and he sees a woman in the shadows. You can't see her face, and you wonder, is that Michelle, or is it going to be Sandra, about to find out why Leonard is waiting for another woman? But it is Michelle, and she comes out and says, "I can't go with you because she says this married man who she's been in love with has left his wife for her." Now, there's no confirmation of that. Maybe she's lying. Maybe she made that up as an excuse not to go with Leonard, because we know from the beginning that she doesn't love him the way he loves her. But either way, Leonard is devastated, and Joaquin Phoenix playing him in this scene lets out this just anguish, animalistic growl at Michelle, saying, "Go!" And it's a fantastically tragic moment. And then we see him walk down to the beach alone in the darkness with just the waves, and dropping his gloves in the sand. And then he thinks, and then he runs back up to his apartment and proposes to Sandra. And that's the end of the film. And I know you're thinking, what? But you see, this is the brilliance of Two Lovers, that it gives you a question like that. So you have to wonder, did Leonard make the right choice by choosing to marry someone who's a really wonderful person? Or is the fact that Sandra's a wonderful person irrelevant? Should he be out there in the world, separate from this whole sphere, the sphere of Sandra, the sphere of his family? Should he? And I don't know. I mean, you're not going to see Two Lovers 2, at least I don't think so. And Mr. Gray is directing other projects like The Immigrant and the Lost City of Z, to my knowledge. So you don't know what happens after Two Lovers. Maybe Leonard has a wonderful life, maybe he has a horrible life. And Mr. Gray has actually said that the film is meant to be a coming-of-age story, which would indicate perhaps a happy ending. Leonard makes the right choice. But I don't think so. I don't think it's a happy ending. The moment that in a lot of ways makes the movie is when Leonard's mother finds out that he's leaving, that he's going away with Michelle, that he's he says to her, tell my dad that I'm sorry and that I'm happy. And the happiness he feels as he's moving towards freedom, embracing something he really wants, I think that's just so precious. And in the end, he loses that, because there's no question that he wanted Michelle and he wanted freedom, he wanted his own life more than he wanted anything else. And I think that you need that adventure in life. You have to define yourself alone and out, you know, out on your own personal quest. And I'll grant you, Michelle clearly is wrong for Leonard. I mean, she's an incredibly bad person. She's passive aggressive. She's manipulative. She's not mean, but she's incredibly devious, even though she's not very smart. Lots of contradictions, but that's what makes characters fascinating. But the fact that she's wrong for Leonard doesn't make Sandra right for Leonard. At least I don't think so. And I think that it's sad that he gave up. I think the right thing for him to do would be to build his own life without Sandra or Michelle, without relying on a significant other, without relying on his family even. And yet he goes along the easy path laid out for him, laid out by Sandra, by his family. I think it's so sad that in the end his pain is left to float unnoticed beneath the order of society. Well, that wraps up my talk about Two Lovers. Please see it. It's a wonderful, incredible, thought-provoking film. And join me next week as I team up with the entire Healthy Orange staff for a video review of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Excited about that one. And also come back the week after that as this series on my favorite films of the 2000s concludes with a talk about Bryan Singer's X2. Thanks for watching. See you next time.